Hi bakers, welcome back to My Bake Escape. This video is dedicated to all the chocolate lovers out there. If you love chocolate, then you're going to want to make this recipe very soon. These are my Chocolate Pot de Creme. It's a French custard recipe. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest at My Bake Escape. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did subscribe. And if you want the full recipe to this video, as well as a lot of other great recipes, you can visit my website at mybakeescape.com. All right, let's get started. As you can imagine, this recipe calls for chocolate, and I am using 60% dark chocolate. I chose Ghirardelli. I'm fortunate to live very close to a Ghirardelli factory, so I picked up some chocolate there, but you can also pick some up at a grocery store or online. You want to use a very good quality chocolate for this recipe because chocolate is the main ingredient. You're going to need about 3 ounces. I had a little over 3 ounces here, but I went with it. Chop the chocolate up into small pieces. This will help it melt down a little bit more and faster when you add the cream later. A huge tip that I give bakers who are just starting is to measure out all of your ingredients ahead of time. So what you see me doing here now is called a mise en place, which means everything in its place. So I like to start out by measuring out every single ingredient to the proper measurement. This helps as I'm making the recipe. It goes really smooth, I'm organized, and I really enjoy the process a lot more. And it also helps ensure that I have every ingredient I need on hand. This recipe calls for 3 egg yolks, and what I notice when separating eggs, especially if they're not room temperature, sometimes the egg white does not want to separate from the yolk. As you can see, I struggled with this egg, and there is still a lot of egg white on there, so I carefully ran it through my fingers, allowing the egg white to fall through my fingers, and that worked. I was able to separate the egg white from the yolk. So I need 3 egg yolks total. And we also need 2/3 cup of whole milk. And I'm using a liquid measuring cup here, Pyrex. It's my favorite one to use. Place this in a saucepan, and then we're also going to need 2/3 cup heavy whipping cream. When measuring liquid, I try to go as close to eye level as possible to make sure that it is at the correct measurement. And you can see here I'm adding a little bit at a time just to make sure it does hit that 2/3 mark. I went ahead and added this to the pot as well, and then the next step is to bring the milks to a low simmer. I do not want to boil the milk. It will scald really quickly, so I need to keep my eye on it and then just bring it to a low simmer. While that happens, I'm going to go ahead and measure out the vanilla extract that I'll need for the custard as well. And as you can see, I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon measurement. I need a total of 1.5 teaspoons, so that's 3 spoonfuls. And here's my mise en place for my custard. So next step is to combine the egg yolks with the rest of the ingredients while the milks are simmering. To the egg yolks, I add granulated sugar, salt, give that a mix. I ended up whisking this for about a minute, just until the eggs and sugar are light and fluffy and a little pale in color. And the milks have come to a simmer, so I kind of give this a spin and take it off the heat. The next step is to temper the eggs. So it's very important that you take your time and add this hot milk just a little bit at a time while mixing constantly. If you add all of the hot liquid at once, you can scramble the eggs, which will not be good. You do not want scrambled eggs in your custard. So after you add about half of the milk, a little bit at a time, you can add the rest. Give that a mix and then place the custard back into the pan, and you're gonna bring this to a low simmer again. Now, I made a mistake. The heat was very high, and so what happened was that this came to a low boil pretty quickly. But while you're bringing this custard to a simmer, you need to stir it constantly, keep an eye on it, and I would suggest using a low heat. As you can see here, it started to thicken fast, and look at those boiling bubbles, that was a mistake that you're going to see the result of later on. So once your custard has thickened, you're going to take it off of the heat, give it a mix, and then next is to incorporate the custard with the chocolate. So while my custard was sitting there, it looked good here, but then as time went by, it started to curdle. And that was because the temperature was just too high. So I'm going to strain this to get rid of as much of the curdled or broken part as I can. Straining this over the chocolate. And then I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes. Add the instant espresso powder, the vanilla extract, and then begin to mix this together. It's not going to look pretty at first, but if you continue to stir it, probably for about 1 to 2 minutes, you will see that the chocolate will begin to look smooth and creamy and a little shiny. So I decided to use these glasses that I have, but you can use any type of ramekin or anything that you have on hand. And I'm making 2 very chocolatey servings. Because I curdled my custard, I did lose a lot of the volume, so this could probably serve 3, but I got 2 servings out of this, and look at how creamy and silky smooth that chocolate is. It turned out really good. I was very happy. Couldn't even tell that I had that curdled custard to begin with. Next step is to place these in the refrigerator for 2 hours so they can set completely. While your custards are setting, actually towards the end, you can go ahead and make the whipping cream topping. And we're going to use heavy whipping cream, some vanilla bean paste. If you do not have vanilla bean paste, you can just use a little extra vanilla extract. We're going to mix that together. If you've never made whipped cream, you have to be patient. It takes probably about 4 to 5 minutes for it to fully whip up into a stiff consistency. After whipping it for about a minute, I added in some powdered sugar and then continued to beat it with the hand mixer, like I said, for another 3 or so minutes. And what you're looking for is a medium stiff peak. So you see how it's pretty stiff and it's ready. So this is what the whipped cream looks like once you've mixed it. And look at all those specks of vanilla beans. It looks so delicious. A good test is to turn the bowl over, and if the whipped cream doesn't fall out, that means it's stiff enough. So I transferred this to a smaller bowl. And it has been about 2 hours, and you can see that the custard has set pretty well. Next is to top it with whipped cream and add some chocolate shavings. Because that glass has a narrow top, I wanted to carefully add the whipped cream without touching the sides of the glasses. So I used 2 spoons here to kind of spoon that whipped cream into a smaller, cleaner portion, and I gently laid it on top of the custard. And I did that again 2 more times because I personally like a lot of whipped cream on my pot de creme. Using a microplane, I take some of the chocolate that I have left over and I carefully shave a little bit of chocolate on top of the whipped cream. And this is optional, but I think it adds a very pretty touch. And there you have it, chocolate pot de creme. This turned out delicious. I was a little worried when my custard broke, but the end result was silky, creamy, chocolatey, absolutely delicious. It wasn't too sweet. It was very, very good. So if you are a chocolate lover, you're going to want to try this. Visit mybakeescape.com for the full recipe and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a sweet day.